Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, where you can find a large selection of Om and yoga clothing, spiritual jewelry, and unique fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now here's your host, Ashton Subbo.
Welcome everyone to the Savannah Podcast. I am Ashton Subbo, your host. Today we're going to talk about focus, meditation, and achieving your goals. Some of the obstacles you're likely to face and what to do about them. We'll also explore how meditation and breathwork can help you achieve your goals. Amazingly, as we dive into the various lore of ancient India, we find all sorts of instruction in meditative techniques hidden in the stories of the gods and goddesses. Today's story will focus on one of my favorite about the monkey god Hanuman. It's the story of the golden mango. The mango in this story can represent our goals, but specifically here we can use the story to understand our adolescent goals. When you were a child and you really thought you wanted that thing, like, oh my gosh, it's so important that I get that doll today, or that toy truck, or I want a unicorn. Even if we're now more advanced in age, if we're all grown up, many of us still cling to these adolescent goals. And we're not talking about goal setting in general, but about those goals that once we mature, we realize weren't actually goals that would serve us or others for that matter, but rather were simply selfish fantasies of our youth. You know, Hanuman is ultimately here to show us this process of moving from a rambunctious, selfish youth into a powerful and wise being who lives in the service of everyone else. This story will give us some insight in how we can grow through this experience in our own lives. It will give us some ideas of tools that we need to develop to achieve our greater goals in life. So our story takes place early in Hanuman's life. Technically, he hasn't even been given the name Hanuman yet. He's still known as Anjaneya, the son of Anjani, who's his monkey mother. He's still a young monkey, and he's known for being a bit of a rascal, a bit of a troublemaker. And one day, while his mother wants to complete some chores, she sits him down at the bottom of a mango tree. She points to the mangoes and tells him that he can eat any of the mangoes that he sees. Now here, the mangoes can also represent the abundance of youth. The whole world is our mango. We're full of potential. We're ripe with possibility. We're filled with choices. Do I want this thing or do I want that thing? Do I go in this direction or that direction? In America, growing up, parents would always tell us kids, you can be anything you want to be with enough hard work. It's part of the American mythos, part of the American dream. So too was it with Hanuman. Now, the young monkey looks up at the tree and spies the biggest, most golden mango he's ever seen. In fact, he was actually looking at the sun without knowing it. But he doesn't know that yet, so he leaps up after it and flies after this giant mango. He flies towards the sun. As he's speeding through the sky towards what he thinks is the juiciest mango ever, a giant demon, a dragon by the name of Rahu, spots the monkey flying towards the sun. It's exclusively the domain of Rahu to devour the sun and create eclipses. How dare this little monkey try to get to the sun and eat it? We see a parallel even in the story of Icarus flying too close to the sun. How dare a lowly human, or human in that story, but in this case a monkey, try to get to the sun, try to get to that big thing, that big goal. So Rahu barrels after Anjaneya, Hanuman. And you can imagine this giant ferocious dragon with blackened skin and scales and blood on its teeth and fire fuming out of its mouth and nose, surrounded by smoke, heading towards this tiny little monkey. But is Anjaneya scared? No. He sees this dragon, he thinks to himself, like, oh my gosh, look at that cute little dragon. I would love to play with him. So with innocence and fearlessness, he changes direction and he heads towards Rahu, thinking he would make a great play toy. And he's very easily distracted from his goal. Now Rahu wasn't used to this type of response. He all of a sudden, he gets scared. He sees this fearless little monkey charging after him, and he gets afraid. He cowers. He tucks tail, and he runs. Now, the subconscious isn't used to resistance. It works behind the scenes. The very nature of the subconscious aspect of our mind that clouds the clarity of awareness and focus is that we aren't really aware of it when it's happening. Our habits and our patterns are that way because we don't really think about them. They just happen. The subconscious wants to block out the sun. Rahu wants to block out the sun, to block out that awareness and focus and concentration so it can move through its usual unobstructed patterns. It keeps us from our goals by keeping us locked in our old patterns. So here's the energy of the subconscious, Rahu, used to easily covering over the conscious mind, and it sees the intent, an aspirant with playfulness and free of fear, and it doesn't know what to do. It cowers. It shrinks in response. So our monkey friend is free to head back towards the sun, towards his goal. But that's not the end of it. Rahu goes to Indra, the lord of the skies, the king of the gods, who kind of represents the ruler over the material realm here, of nature, including our senses, and this overall aspect of the mind. Now, Rahu convinces Indra that this little monkey boy is a threat. Indra's got to do something about it. So now the monkey mind, it normally isn't a threat. It goes from here to there, bouncing from one thought to the next. When the mind operates like this, things stay as normal. They stay as they've always been. It allows Rahu to do his work. But now, this monkey mind is focused. Through the power of its will, it's determined to reach the sun, to reach its goal. So now it's a problem. Now it's a threat. The operator of the subconscious mind, so used to control, needs to put things back into their usual order, back into place, so it can govern from its dark realm of the subconscious again. So Indra is on it. He grabs his magical thunderbolt, mounts his giant white elephant, and heads off looking for the monkey. But now, when Hanuman sees this giant white elephant racing towards him, he gets even more excited than when he saw Rahu. We can see the pitfalls here of the playfulness of youth. It's constantly being distracted. Playfulness adds a certain lightness in life, which helps us from getting too serious about things, too rigid, but it is also easy to be distracted from one's goal, from what one's focusing on. So Anjaneya chases after the elephant, and he grabs him by his trunk, wanting to play with him. He's a little rough, as kids often are, and he starts yanking the trunk around and the elephant around. It's like my little daughter playing with her puppy. We have to remind her to be gentle. But Indra is not exactly the model of a patient parent. He's furious. Like, how dare this little monkey disrespect him in his glorious elephant like this? So he grabs his thunderbolt and he launches it at the monkey. It hits Anjaneya on the chin, breaking his jaw and knocking him unconscious. Well, this is life, right? You commit to something, you focus, and the universe doubles down. The phone starts to ring, your various subconscious patterns arise, all sorts of things come at you in a furious attempt to get you back into your subconscious ways, to knock you unconscious again. You're in a yoga class and you're focusing on your breath, you're paying attention to your movement, and boom, these powerful subconscious mental draws start to pull you away or take you back into those old tapes of thinking. And before you know it, you're right back in repeating the old same thoughts, not paying attention to your breath, your limbs are all over the place. And you make a choice to do something in life and the demons come up. They want to test your resilience. But here, Anjaneya loses. He gets knocked unconscious. He falls back to sleep, back into his patterns. He falls back towards the earth, away from the goal of his son. Now, on a side note, having broken his jaw, this is where Hanuman gets his name. One of the meanings of Hanuman is broken chin or broken jaw. Now, Hanuman, while considered to be an incarnation of Shiva, the god that represents ultimate consciousness, has both a godly father, Vayu, and a monkey father, Kesari. Now, it's Hanuman's godfather, Vayu, the god of the wind, of prana, of breath. He sees his son falling unconscious back to earth. He swoops Hanuman up. He flies into a cave at the very center of the earth. And he's absolutely furious at what's happened to his son. So he draws in his mighty breath, and he sucks out all the air from the world. Every living thing on the earth that relies on air to breathe and to live begins to perish, begins to die. And the gods go into an absolute panic. What's going on? All the animals are dying, plants are dying. So the gods rush to find Vayu to see what's going on, knowing that he is the god of breath, of air. And when the other gods find Vayu, they hear the story, they hear what's going on, and they beg and plead with Vayu to return all of the air to the world. Eventually, Vayu agrees, but he demands first that the gods bestow boons and gifts and blessings onto Hanuman. So let's pause for a moment to explore some of the hidden explanation or meaning in all this. What happens when we lose our focus in our journey to our goal? What happens when we fall back unconscious? What do we do? Well, we can utilize breath in meditation. We can practice pranayama. Pranayama is what is called breath work or breath guidance or control in yoga. Now, specifically here, Vayu draws down into the cave, into the darkness inside the individual self. It withdraws deep down inside, retaining the breath. This is called kumbhaka in yoga, the breath retention. This is a very powerful yogic technique and at the heart of many pranayama practices. And if you stay here too long, well, things could die, or you could, or perhaps at the very least you could pass out. Because things in the world need air, they need breath, they need prana. Interestingly as well, when you hold the breath, there's an initial panic of the body, an impulse to breathe again. The panic is there, just like the gods were panicking. But what's on the other end of that impulse, that other end of that panic? The boons, the treasures of the practice, the blessings, the treasures of what you get from the practice, from the work. I do want to mention before we get into the boons as a little disclaimer that it's important to note that anytime you're learning a new breathing technique or practicing retentions, it's important to practice first with a qualified instructor, someone who knows what they're doing. I wouldn't recommend just trying these things out of a book. So, on to the boons. Brahma, the creator god, grants Hanuman immortality as well as other boons. Vishnu, the preserver, promises him that he will forever be known as the greatest devotee of God. Indra even comes along and grants him immunity from weapons of any kind, including his own thunderbolt, the same thunderbolt that he launched at him earlier and broke his chin, knocked him unconscious. And down the list they go. The various gods go granting him further boons that represent all these different various cities. Cities are the various perfections or magical powers of the yogi. These are the very skills we develop to move forward and achieve our goals in life. When we develop a meditation practice, a pranayama practice, we develop special tools, special powers that help us overcome the various obstacles on our path. Interestingly, though, at this point, Hanuman, with all these new boons, doesn't get up with all of these powers and go back after the sun. What he thought the sun was, a mango, it wasn't. In his youth, in his misunderstanding, he went chasing after something that he thought he wanted. He selfishly was like, oh, I want that giant juicy mango. But what he thought it wasn't. Does that make sense? Like when you go after something thinking it's really what you want, but then you come to understand that you didn't really want that thing. When you won $1 million because you think it's going to bring you happiness, but then you realize that money isn't actually going to make you happy. Like, if I get this stuff for myself, then I'll be happy. Right there is the first step in Hanuman's real growth and evolution. It's no longer about getting the sun, eating the mango. That's not what's going to make him happy. The story actually starts to shift into another direction, but later, Hanuman actually becomes the student of the sun. It is said that Hanuman was the original creator of the Surya Namaskar, the sun salute, so often practiced in postural yoga. And what is the Surya Namaskar, the sun salute? It's another practice of focus and concentration, of breath, of movement, moving into that goal of consciousness, of absolute presence. That story later gives us another tool to utilize in our path. But that, of course, is a story for another time. So from one sense, we can understand the story in the greater context of Hanuman, who ultimately is a symbol of service to others, and realize that when we start on a journey of meditation, we start to shift away from our early, youthful, selfish, and misguided goals. And we move more skillfully towards goals that will help and serve others. If we want to look at this story standing on its own, we can see an example of how easy it is to get knocked off whatever goal, whatever path we've set ourselves on. When we set a goal, something we want to train our focus on, we get attacked, we get assailed by our subconscious patterns and thinking. We're thrown off track, knocked back down to earth, and ruled again by the subconscious. So how do we help to engage this tendency to fall back into our subconscious patterns? Meditation. Specifically here, we're talking about pranayama, breath work, leading to meditation. Through practices of breath and of breath retention, we overcome the subconscious mind, its tendencies to be scattered and swayed by the sensory experiences, continuously coming off track. And we can abide in that deep and profound space of meditation, free to receive the boons, the treasures that state provides. Free ultimately to go back into life with the focus that's been primed and cleared from the usual distractions of the mind, allowing us to achieve and accomplish our goals, whatever they are. So we've cultivated a mind more free of distraction, a mind less likely to fall victim to the ploys of the subconscious mind. And we have it beautifully illustrated here in a story of a monkey, a dragon, and the gods. So if you have a goal laid out or goals laid out in front of you, I hope this story has provided some insight into the tendencies of the mind to scatter and get distracted, and shown you the importance of cultivating a meditation practice to help channel your focus. In future podcasts, we'll share more of the stories about Hanuman's journey towards realizing the importance of serving others and directing your goals to things that will serve more than just yourself, things that will serve your community and the world. For now, I hope you've enjoyed our story today and learned something new. May you reach your goals and be of service to others. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll join us again next time. Namaste. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know by writing a review on iTunes. It's the only way that we know if we should keep producing more episodes like these. It also helps us attract new listeners to join us every week and spread the word of yoga, spirituality, and conscious living. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you'll join us again next week.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.